テレ東BIZ.
So maybe you have met Zelensky,
President Zelensky, yes, I met.
So
yes.
how was your impression?
Well, I met him just before the war.
So
It was 10 days before the war. I was in Kiev, yes, and I was meeting President Zelensky, and we spoke a lot about the situation. And I mean, he's a democratically elected president, contrary to Putin. And this is what Ukrainians cherish so much, that they actually have a right to choose. And that's why they don't want to be liberated by Kremlin, because they know what is this liberation. You are cut off chances to decide on your country's fate. So he's that was before war. I think he surprised quite many people around the globe for being so tough and so committed to defense of his country, and not absolutely thinking about fleeing or being in exile. This is extremely important for the people who are in Ukraine now, because you need to have your leader on the ground. You understand that he's with you in this situation. So I think he's a strong leader, and this very bad situation, this humanitarian crisis, and this actually crime against humanity also proved him to be a very strong leader and very fit leader for the nation. So that would be my comment. And I think no surprise that all the parliaments are applauding him when he speaks up. And I know he was speaking also in Japan Parliament, which is not a very typical thing, and there are quite many things that are changing. But this is important. I mean, we can send him all the compliments we have, but we also have to send him more support in terms of military weapon and all the other support that we can, because Ukraine is not fighting just for Ukraine. It is fighting for us, in the sense that it is fighting for the concept of liberal democracy.
But NATO can't intervene so militarily in Ukraine.
Well, there are things that need to be taken into account, and of course this is for the politicians, for the big group of NATO leaders to take these decisions. So it's easy to speak your personal views, but it's more complicated to speak the collective responsibility views. But look, most of the countries that are providing all sorts of help to Ukraine are actually NATO countries.
So is your personal opinion different from what the NATO decided?
Well, I do not have any jet fighters to provide to Ukraine. So it's in this sense, it is quite easy for me to say that I would do this if I could. But I am not in a position to do anything about it. So it is for this collective agreement to have the view on this. But I mean, we're not out of there. And what is important, if NATO is not participating, if we cannot achieve that United Nations would impose this security zones, at least around the nuclear power plants or around humanitarian corridors, because it's Russia that is sitting on Security Council, and this looks a little bit Kafkaesque, so to say, where you sit in a council that decides on your own invasion on Ukraine. Then what we absolutely need to do, we need to increase the support that we are providing to Ukraine on one hand, and on the other hand we need to increase the pressure on Kremlin to make this war simply unbearable.
So in terms of intervention, someone is criticizing the President Biden's announcement, so that they don't think they deployed their troops in Ukraine before this war happened. So what do you think about it?
Well, it's for the leaders to make these decisions. But I know that the United States was providing and is providing significant support for Ukraine in many ways. So it is a different thing where your army actually participates in the battle, but you have so many other ways to provide support, because the Ukrainian army has been trained by trainers and experts from NATO. They know how to fight, and now we need to provide them with the support that they need.
But I think so he should have avoided a comment like this.
Well, you know, I'm not a person who would, I mean, he's not president of my country, so it's easy to comment on other politicians, but I will most probably leave it there.
So your essay, so you describe the West as a hit the snooze button and postpone problems. Are there alliance members who are snoozing even now?
Well, I would say that there are still countries or leaders who are doing the same mistake as they were doing in the past. The major mistake of Western leaders is to try and judge Putin by the standards of liberal democracy. And this you cannot do, because you often hear this debate that we need to say what are the reasons of sanctions, and then what steps Putin needs to take that we call the sanctions back. I don't think this is a fruitful and reasonable debate. Then the second sort of mistake is to think, I know that it stems from Sun Tzu, but still, I think this is a Western liberal democracy mindset, that you need to sort of build the bridge for your enemy to step back so that he could save the face. I mean, he doesn't need to save the face. He is not standing to whatever elections. He does not have a need to prove something to his people, because if he say that something is black, then it will be black regardless that it is red. And you do not need sort of to think how he feels about it, because it's just ridiculous. So I would say that there is still this understanding that you need to create, we as Western democracies need to create him an exit strategy. This is not what we need to do. I think what we need to do is to keep the price very high and even increase it.
So which country did the worst mistake?
I think this is a collective responsibility. Same like we speak about Russian people. And now we hear this question: we should not hurt the people, and we should impose sanctions that somehow do not hurt the people. But look, it's not people's guilt, but it's people's responsibility. So I think also in this case, you cannot say that this is a guilt of Western liberal democracies, but this is a collective responsibility for not doing things well in advance, and for sort of financing this war machine and letting it grow to this extent so that Russia dared to risk an attack, and of course miscalculated, because there were so many things that were out of their calculations. The resistance of Ukrainian people, the speed with which West had responded, both in terms of weapon supply and military help supply, but also in terms of sanctions, the level of coordination that we managed to achieve, and that was an unprecedented coordination, not only within the European Union, when you need to get a consent of 27, but also among the European Union, United States, United Kingdom, Japan, all the countries, even the countries that were never ever participating in whatever sanctions, like Switzerland. So I think this is what is upside of the situation. But if we come back, we cannot rewrite history now. We can only speculate. But I'm very confident that if this reaction, or part of this reaction, not the whole, but a part of this reaction would be seen 8 years ago, 7 years ago, then the picture today would have been completely different.
So you suggested the Western countries should put more sanction, put the same sanction on Belarus. Could you explain your opinion about this?
We know that only part of the banks are diswifted, so to say, and if you take the major banks that are sort of major tracks for a payment settlement, then it's only one of the banks that is actually diswifted, and big banks like Sberbank or others are still available to make payments. Of course, they are suffering their own losses because of market prices of their shares and things, and because the the payments for goods becoming more and more complicated due to other sanctions. But still, I think that there is no really good ground to keep at least those biggest banks within the SWIFT system for longer. And oil and gas is the major flow of money that still is financing Putin's economy and his war. And I think it is doable reasonably quickly in terms of oil. Of course, for gas, maybe it's a little bit more complicated due to infrastructure that one needs to have, for example, an LNG supplies. But look at us. We've been blackmailed by Gazprom for so many years that we got actually nervous and angry. So we built up an LNG terminal, and now basically I don't care about Gazprom. So this is a strategy that European Union had to enforce years before. But on the contrary, some of our member states were sort of digging into this dependency on projects like Nord Stream that is not operational anyway, because there is a war. So Germany decided, and rightly decided, to stop it. But it should have not happened first instance. But I still think that there is a very reasonable grounds to increase the sanctions, because there we hear this, we need to wait and see how they function, but we know that people in Mariupol are being killed on the streets. There are, I don't know how many people who were just brutally killed. This is a war crime that is going on. So we can calculate, but I think this calculation should not take very long.